Welcome to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nick Michael. My guest today is Kim Costa. Kim is an author, speaker, podcast host, creator of the Wheelhouse Method, and a top-performing realtor serving the Atlanta area. But none of that is where her story starts. Her story starts with a house. After years in residential design and construction, Kim built what she believed was her dream home, Clarity Farm. It was, by any standard, beautiful. And the moment she was living inside it, she knew something was wrong. Not with the home, with the life it was reflecting back to her. Around that same time, she was offered an opportunity connected to the Oprah Winfrey Show. The kind of moment most people wait their whole careers for. And she turned it down because she couldn't stand in front of an audience and honestly claim that life she was living was one she'd actually chosen. That decision didn't end anything. It began everything. What followed was the work Kim now brings to others through the Wheelhouse Method, a framework built on foundational premise that real alignment isn't something you find by accident. It's something you tell yourself the truth long enough to reach. In this conversation, we talk about the cost of performing a life that no longer fits. We talk about reinvention in your 50s, not as a second act, but as a first honest one. And we talk about what it means to let a beautiful thing go because you finally trust what's on the other side of that honestly. Kim, welcome to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. Very excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here, Nick. Thank you for having me.
I really wanted to begin with, how did the idea for Live in Your Wheelhouse first emerge for you personally? Was there a specific moment in your own life where you realized something needed to change? And keeping in line with how I like to view or begin things here on Pivot Point, was it an emotional or cognitive awareness before the actual change?
You know, I would say it was a cognitive, at least the final point, the straw that broke the camel's back was cognitive, because I took a personality test and was also working with a coach that had me filling out the wheel of life, which are 8 areas of your life, and you rate them from 1 to 10 as to how they're going. And so I was doing this on a quarterly or monthly basis, making huge changes in my life, realizing I had a flat tire on that wheel of life, and that my life did not fit my personality, and it hadn't for quite some time. So to really put it into both areas, I had the feelings, the whispers that I was out of alignment, but it was a cognitive recognition with theories about personality and lifestyle based on like Maslow's hierarchy, what needs weren't being met. So me being the person I am and studying like, how can I fix this? It was all backed by science eventually that I was living out of alignment and that was causing discomfort.
And I mean, that's fascinating. How were you able to connect all of this together with Maslow's hierarchy and how did that come about?
Yeah, well, the first thing I connected was like my personal foundation with the Wheel of Life. I was flying home from Spain on a creative writing trip, And as I was landing in Paris, France, I had drawn this wheel on my notebook, and it was a writing retreat with people of my same personality. So I was an accountant before that, not my thing. So I was changing everything. And so as I landed in Paris, this lady next to me looked over. She said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's the Wheel of Life, and I'm basing it on your home and how the foundation are the 4 M's: myself, mastery, mission, and mates. And so if your foundation is off, which mine was, I wasn't acting as my true self, it's going to affect the rest of the house, which is all your lifestyle areas, those 8 areas of the Wheel of Life." And she goes, "That's fascinating. Can I have your card?" No, that was 2018. So if you're listening out there, I finally got the book done.
So let me flash up the Wheelhouse Method
Yes.
for viewers, really, if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay, so the Wheelhouse assessment is in the shape of a house. And so the bottom are the 4 M's. And that's the foundation that is, if there's a crack in the basement, like I said, there's going to be cracks. And I see it physically in a home. There are cracks in the middle of the home. And so myself is, who are you? What's your personality? What do you enjoy doing? And how do you like to live? And then mastery is, what of your gifts that you have been given do you actually have you focused on? Are you focusing on the right things? I was focusing on accounting. Really, I'm a people person. And then it's to mission. What are you doing with those gifts? And then mates are, who do you surround yourself? Your partner, your best friends, even your family. Who do you let in your home? Do they support you or do they sabotage you? And then from there, it goes up into the middle living areas of the house framework, where you have the 8 areas of the wheel of life. They're finance, health, environment, career, romance, fun and leisure, spirituality, and family and friends. And so those are the 8 areas that you need to be living in alignment with. If you're scoring a 2 in career and a 1 in finance based on your home, like you can't afford the home, or you just got a promotion and you're making a lot more money, you can afford a bigger house, and your new job is in Spokane and you live in New York.
Oh, wow.
That's not going to work. So you have a flat tire.
I love that term, flat tire. I think it's a great. What for you? What specifically didn't feel aligned, even though everything looks successful from the outside?
Yeah. Well, going back to Clarity Farm, that beautiful house I built with my former spouse in Milton, Georgia, which is a big horse farm country, and that's what everybody did. I'm a golfer. I like my feet on the ground. I don't like to scuba dive. Nothing my brother does. Good for him. They love it. Beautiful photos coming back from that. That's not for me. I like my feet on the ground. So I was horseback riding. I'm an extrovert and I was living remotely out in the country. I was performing the controller task in our residential construction business. I am a right-brained person. I do not normally operate mostly out of my left side of my brain. So I'm a logical person, but I'm also a very creative person. That felt like it was missing in my life.
You
So,
sound more balanced, though. I don't mean to
well, I
say that,
am. Yeah,
because the accounting is more left, and then the
it is.
creativity, everything else you're doing is just speaks in loud
Totally.
and clear of right brain.
But doing accounting for 27 years, I
Yeah.
developed that side of my brain
Yes. Yeah.
and I had to use it. And I wondered why I had a headache because I'm not normally made that way. So that's what felt out of alignment, and so much so I was doing the wrong hobbies and I fell off the horse and broke my back. And so while I was home, I started writing again. It forced me to pause. It forced me to reckon with myself and the lifestyle I was living. That is the pivot point right there. Is I was lucky to be walking by all accounts, and I had what I felt was a second lease on life and having a full mobility for the rest of my life. And my doctor said, "I don't know why you're going to walk again. You must have an angel on your shoulder." And so that put out a light bulb. That was my pivot point. What am I going to do with this blessing? And so the wheels started turning, and like eight moves, a divorce, a career change, an empty nest later, I finally made the changes.
I want to compliment your persistence and your grit
Yeah.
for not giving up and for searching and allowing, because I could imagine that creative part of you is really searching
Yes.
and then taking it to the next level. What were you actually telling yourself to maintain that narrative when it was happening?
That keep going, one step in front of the other. Um, know what your end goal is going to be. And I didn't want to break up my family. I didn't want to upset, we needed to run the business. So I just kept going, but I went and got an interior design certificate, which is creative. I went and got most of a master's of human resource development, which is people oriented. So along with doing what I was doing, I scratched that itch and educated myself in the area that I knew I wanted to get to. It just, took a little while to get there.
That is amazing. When I work with people that have made career changes, I just know that those are the aspects of their life when they see or hear someone talk about taking the initiative and making a complete turn. Uh, your story is definitely fits right into that. You're listening to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nick Michael. If today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It truly helps others find the show and supports the work we're doing here. So, what belief about success had to break for you to move forward?
That I don't have to continue doing what I've done. And that even
Yes.
though I co-ran a successful business and that was lucrative, that did not. So I started to go get my master's in accounting
Mm.
because that's what I've been doing and that's how I need to make a living and all the things. Like I've done this for 27 years. How can I pivot now? But I started to get that master's, had a massive headache, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. And so then I said, I'm going to become a realtor. And that the pivot point there was that farm, Clarity Farm, that I built from scratch with my former spouse. Somebody bought it for quite a sum of money and tore it down right at. And I was like, oh my gosh, my like people loved that home. It was beautiful. I had such memories there. And so when they tore it down, I was like, I'm going to become a realtor. I'm going to help people create homes again because now my masterpiece is gone, and it's a sign. Like I need to start listening and paying attention to these whispers and signs because I just believe that there's a higher power that shows you the way,
Of course. Yeah.
and I was not. I was doing my will.
Have you ever faced a moment that changed everything? A loss, a new path, or an awakening that forced you to rewrite your life? Pivot Point is a podcast that explores those stories. I'm Nick Michael. We'll dive into how pain can spark growth and how crisis leads to clarity. Subscribe to Pivot Point today.